Okay. Again, thank you guys so much for joining tonight's call. As I mentioned before, I have gone down a rabbit hole as it relates to trying to be as clean as possible. And part of that potentially is removing the fat in the diet, right? Some people see this and it's a trigger word for them. There's no ill intent here. When I say get rid of the fat, I'm talking about the fuel that you feed your body in that capacity. So just at the forefront, just making sure we're on the same page with regards to that. I can't remember, this is supposed to be the second slide or the third slide, but this is me. My name is Mike Thomas. I am a board certified health coach. I help people primarily to lose weight by incorporating more plants into their diet. I've worked as a health coach for about 5 years now, and that little QR code in the middle there has some information about me as well, and I'll probably in the description of this video, anybody watching online, feel free to click on if you want to learn more about me and what I do. Feel free to do that. There's a little disclaimer here for you. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only and solely as a self-help tool for your use. I'm not providing medical, psychological, or nutritional therapy advice. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat any health problems or illnesses without consulting your own medical practitioner. Always seek the advice from your own medical practitioner and or mental health provider about your specific health situation. For my full disclaimer, please go to coachmikethomas.com. So again, this is about what we can do to minimize the fuel we feed our body, as in the fat percentage in that fuel. So some fat facts that I looked up, 72%, it's probably more now because this is 3 years old. So maybe a little bit more, maybe it's 73 or 74% of Americans are now either overweight or obese, right? So a significant change has happened in America in the last 40 years. I mentioned this in my video this morning. The number of people that are obese today has increased by 250%. So 2.5 times the number of people. It's gone up that much in just 40 years. Unfortunately, the fastest rate of growth as it relates to obesity percentages is increasing in children. It's gone up 4 times or 4,000%, or 400%, right? So diet, what we fuel our bodies with, is the number one cause of early death and disability. This has been noted in a study in the Lancet, a medical journal, which analyzes the data from 195 countries, highlighting that poor dietary habits characterized by high intake of unhealthy foods and low intake of healthy ones contribute significantly to deaths worldwide, more than any other risk factor like tobacco, high blood pressure, etc. Right? So, and when I think about, and I don't know if you guys agree or not, but when I think about poor dietary habits characterized by high intake of unhealthy foods and low intake of healthy ones, I think about the standard American diet, right? A diet of excess, a diet of that's very heavy in salt, oil, sugar. Many of you and I have talked about the sugar and the challenges with that as well. So I think about that, and that's pretty much ubiquitous with most people that are in America that are doing that. Excessive weight has caused many chronic disease such as heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. However, let's get a little bit happier here. A whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet can help to reverse heart disease, which was proven with Dean Ornish and the Ornish program. It's actually now paid for by Medicare and many insurance companies, whereby they go to a pretty intensive 72-hour, 9-week lifestyle medicine to help reverse heart disease, or at least stop the heart disease. Unfortunately, in that program, you had to have a heart attack or open heart surgery or consistent angina, which is chest pain, for a long period of time to qualify for the program. So my thought is, and hopefully folks that are listening to this or on the call, is what can we do to get, not even go there as it relates to having a heart attack or actually open heart surgery, right? How can we take and be methodical with our proactive steps to be healthy today? Also, a whole food plant-based diet can help to reverse obesity. Caldwell Esselstyn, who's the author of the book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. I think we see that, and we'll see that on this actual presentation as well. And then a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet can help to reverse diabetes. And that's our friends Cyrus and Robbie have stated that many, many times. And we're talking about type 2 diabetes, which 95% of Americans that have diabetes, those 95% of those are actually type 2 diabetes. And that's their company, Mastering Diabetes, which is pretty much a lot of what this presentation is about as well. So what's changed in the last 40 years? Again, 37, I mentioned this on my video this morning, 37% of the calories that the average American consumes is fat calories, right? So when you're eating something, 30% of that is fat on average, and that's the average. Things are fatter, more fattening, higher amounts of salt, oil, and sugar to make the higher calories more appealing. So many food companies are making these as well. We're eating more calories and less nutrients. The average calories consumed today, so this one blew me away. The average calories consumed today by the average American is 3,600 calories. And literally 50 years ago, it was 2,300 calories, right? So 3 days in a row of eating 3,600 versus 2,300 is 1 extra pound of fat, basically. So, because there's about 4,000 calories in a pound. The food we eat today are much higher in calories and fat, obviously. So how did this happen? What happened, big picture? So we took our eye off the ball as consumers, but we didn't know that we needed to keep our eye on the ball. So that's not a blame thing, but the reality is many of us were not paying attention. We thought, just like human beings and any mammal thinks about the short-term gain and pleasure versus the long-term pain of disease. We are human beings, and therefore we want two main things. We want to pursue more pleasure, and we want to avoid pain. And also the other piece of that is we want to do that in a manner that's as efficient as possible with less energy, which when I think about that, pleasure, no pain, less energy, I think about drive-through at fast food restaurants, right? You literally don't even have to get out of your car. Actually, we can say a lot of those companies now that deliver food to you, you just need to pick up the phone, pay a little extra money, and then it's at your doorstep, in 30 or 45 minutes. Many of us, like I mentioned before, didn't even know. We had no idea that we needed to keep our eye on the ball. And the food industry, like I mentioned, has a very good idea, making things that are tasting delicious, that they sell to sell more. And this isn't trying to demonize the food industry. This is just the reality of what we're dealing with today in America. So where is the fat coming from? If we are consuming so much more fat, what are some of the types of foods? And I've categorized these. This is just a rough category, but processed foods, I think a lot of the fat we're getting in the middle of the grocery store. A high percentage of fat comes from those processed foods. Obviously, fast foods, snacks and chips. So your cakes and candies and chips. Animal products obviously have a great deal of fat, mostly saturated fat, which is the most unhealthy part, which causes cardiovascular disease. And then fried foods, like a fried Snickers bar that you can get at the fair, or oil-laden salad dressing that's got lots of fat in it. So this is just really quick, some real quick slides. So processed foods, I think this was a processed meal, a TV dinner processed meal. It's 45% fat. I don't know if you guys can see that if you're looking at your phones or your laptops, but this has got 39 grams of fat in it. And we had a presentation a couple of years ago. And basically what you do is you take your number of grams of fat and you multiply that by 9, because there's 9 calories per gram. And that gives you 351 calories. And you divide that by the total calories, which is 780. So that gives you a 45% fat content when you're actually eating that as it relates to the calories. So here's one fast food, right? So we've got a double Big Mac, which is 43 grams of fat. Large fries, which is 24 grams of fat. It's a total of 67 grams of fat, or 603 calories from fat. And there is no fat in that Coca-Cola, whether that's diet or regular. That's pretty much pure sugar. And I mean pure sugar. Also, category 3 was like snack foods, chips, baked goods, etc. So here's a bag of On the Border chips. So this On the Border chips has 7 chips as 1 serving, has 150 calories, 8 grams of fat, and that makes it 48% fat. And oh, by the way, I don't know about you guys. I definitely have had plenty of chips in my life. I don't know that I've ever just had 7, right? So the reality is when we're having something like this, we're having a heck of a lot more than just 7 chips. Also animal products, like I mentioned before, meats, cheeses, and I put dairy, or I actually focus on whole milk here, or the milk product. So whole milk is 50% of your calories are coming from fat. 2% milk is not 2% fat, it's 38% fat. And 1% milk is still 20 to 21% fat. So a lot is happening there as well. as we continue to increase our amount of milk that we're drinking because of amazing ads like Got Milk that are targeting kids, etc. And the last one is, where does the fat come from, is your cooking oil. So here's an image of just cooking basically fried chicken in a whole bunch of grease and fat, which many of us have consumed this before or actually cooked it before, but that's where a lot of it comes from as well. And I put a subcategory in this one as salad dressings, because you can have an amazing tasting salad that has got lettuce and shredded carrots and some tomatoes and some onion, and cucumber and celery. And it could be a pound of food, which is literally 100 calories. But then you could put 4 or 5 tablespoons on that, and now you bump it up to 600 to 700 calories, because the olive oil that's in that salad dressing is very high in calories, right? So this is where the presentation gets a little bit different. So kind of bear with me here. I shared this with one of you last week. That basically, I want to look at something that Dr. Walter Kepner did back in the 1930s. So this was a very progressive doctor who said, I've got some people that have kidney disease. I've got some people that have type 2 diabetes and that are struggling with obesity. And let's just try this diet as an example, just to see how it works for them. And it's called the rice diet. Some of you may have heard of this. It's literally 90% carbs, 5% protein, and 5% fat. The rice diet is a low calorie, low sodium, and low fat diet focused on rice, fruits, and vegetables to improve health, particularly for hypertension and kidney disease. It emphasizes whole foods and restricts protein, fat, and salt. This was originally developed by Dr. Walter Kempner. Okay, so let's see if this is going to work for me here. Hang on just a minute. This worked for me earlier and then it didn't work for me. All right, so basically this is a video, which I'm going to show you in just a second, with Dr. McDougall, Dr. John McDougall, who talks a little bit about this rice diet and what happened with the rice diet. So let me do this real quick. You can have a nice, okay. Let me do this here. All right, this will help. Doesn't work, then we'll go somewhere else. YouTube. Can you guys see my YouTube screen?
No.
Okay. Yeah, not even let me sign in here. Let's do this here. Can you bear with me here? Oh, let's go there. Okay. Right. Just a second here. Now you guys can't see it, right?
What are you doing?
You cannot see it.
No.
Okay, so I just want you to listen to it, because what it's still recording, and what he says is really, really important. It's about a 4-minute clip. And it's really just him talking. But and I've got a couple slides from this presentation I can show you too. So just listen to it. We're going to get past this ad, and then I'll get off of this.
You forgot about Valentine's Day. Lock in your Valentine's order early.
This is how AG1 works to upgrade your health routine.
It would burden failing kidneys.
Okay, it says Walter Kepner, MD of Duke University, designed a high-carb, low-fat vegan diet that was 90% carbs, 5% protein, and 5% fat. His diet cured type 2 diabetes 100% of the time, reversed heart disease, and cured a host of common degenerative
Kepner
diseases.
diet is a diet of rice. They use white rice and fruit and fruit juice and sugar, table sugar. They had to give table sugar to cut the nutrient content of the rice. You see, rice has so much protein in it that it would burden failing kidneys and failing livers. So in some cases, Kempner had to make half the diet sugar, which has no protein, so that the patient would do okay, would not suffer from too much protein. A white rice was just about 5% protein. His naysayers, the people who wanted to see Kempner fail, actually took 8 of his patients who were on the rice diet, put them in a metabolic ward, and studied them, and reported they could find no metabolic deficiencies and only positive results on his patients. If you want to find this research easily, just by going to a link, you go to my December 2013 newsletter, and just what I said about his contemporaries trying to prove him wrong, just hit the link and you'll read the paper. Yeah. Anyway, that's the kind of diet that he fed. Why did he use white rice? Because he thought it was more palatable and it was more convenient to get. You could read about Walter Kempner. One of his close associates for many years wrote a biography of him. It's well worth getting if you're interested in this subject. It talks about the man and about the things that he did. So the McDougall diet versus the rice diet, the Kempner diet. Well, the one thing he did, he showed me when I read his work, the power of diet therapy. And he also showed me that there's no possibility of developing any nutritional deficiencies based on the diet I recommended. After all, he recommended rice and sugar and fruit, and they couldn't prove any nutritional deficiencies. So all this nonsense about where do you get your protein, where do you get your calcium, all the things that people would worry about, even myself when I first started out, were proved to be nonsense by his work. Before I was born in 1947, Kempner had disproven concepts that your doctors hold today to be true. Diet has little to do with heart disease. Many, if not most of your doctors still believe that, and Kempner proved that to be wrong before I was born. Additional protein improves health. Your doctor, I know almost all your doctors still believe that. Kempner proved that to be incorrect before I was born. And carbohydrates cause diabetes. He showed that his diet, which was 93% carbohydrate, cured type 2 diabetes 100% of the time. All this published before 1953. Well, I do use the Kempner diet sometimes. I still take care of real patients. I'm still a doctor. I take care of patients. And we usually have 40 to 50 people each program. And we run 6 programs for the public a year and 2 for businesses a year, or programs. And about 3 times a year, I have a patient who is so severely ill, primarily with kidney disease. They only have maybe 10, 15, 20% of their kidney function left, that I have to teach them the rice diet. I consider the rice diet the diet for the nearly dead, and that's how I use it. But the McDougall diet, what I teach, what Jeff and Sabrina Nelson have brought you together to learn, what Caldwell Esselstyn and Ann are trying to teach you. This is the diet for the living. There's no apology necessary. This is the best tasting diet, the least inexpensive diet, the diet that is most kind to animals and to the planet. There's just no reason to, in any way, question what you're doing.
All right. So, okay, let me go here. And all right, can you guys see your faces on the screen? Is that right or no? Or do you see my presentation?
We can see us.
Okay. Can you see my presentation now?
Nope.
Okay, let me do this. How about now?
No.
Okay. All right, let's do this here. Do this here and share. You see it now, right?
Yep.
Okay, I apologize for that. All right, so I may have to go in this format for a little bit here. But so this, I'll just continue. Basically, we heard what he said. You know, what this is a pretty dramatic thing that this doctor did way back in the 1930s to help people that were literally kidneys were failing, they had chronic hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, etc. And he gave them a diet of just rice, white rice at that, which had, you know, obviously high, he said towards the end there, 93% carbohydrates, very low fat and very low protein. Okay. So these are actually real pictures of people that went through that process and going through that diet, where obviously the obesity piece was significantly improved based on what happened with regards to them taking that on a consistent basis, right? So just know that this presentation is not my advocacy for your trying to do the rice diet. But what if we lean more into a whole food plant-based diet with low fat, right? So what does that mean? What is a whole food plant-based diet with low fat versus a whole food plant-based diet? Okay. And that is explained here. So a whole food plant-based diet is typically about 15 to 20% fat on your diet, right? And remember, the average American today has about 37 to 40% fat in their diet. So it's still significantly less, which is why a lot of people have tremendous success with losing weight on this particular diet as well. But if you go to what Dr. McDougall, who was the gentleman that was just talking, or Dr. Esselstyn, they emphasize what can we do to really bring the fat down even that much more, which is really the premise of this video, of this presentation. And how do you do that when you're eating a clean, whole food, plant-based diet to actually bring the fat down more? You minimize or even potentially eliminate, not necessarily being perfect, but eliminate things like avocados, nuts and seeds, like walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, etc., soy, tofu, tempeh. All of those things I just said are incredibly healthy, right? So please don't think, oh my gosh, is that bad for me? Not necessarily, but we're looking at what can we do to take steps to potentially even remove the fat that much more. Olives. Now, olives, healthy fats, just like avocados and nuts and seeds and soy, but a lot of olives have a tremendous amount of sodium in them. Obviously, we talked about no oil. Vegan processed foods sometimes is perceived as saying, well, I'm being healthy because I'm eating vegan, when there's a lot of oil in that. Obviously, that's not whole food plant-based anyway. Fake meats, same thing. And then processed plant foods. And there's many plant foods that are out there that are processed. So really the difference is removing those items or minimizing those items, because you can go from 20% to 10 or 11 or 12% in fat in your diet, as in the capacity of just minimizing or mitigating some of those items. So what can I eat then? If I'm going to remove all that stuff, most of which probably most of us on this call enjoy, what can you eat? And the reality is you can eat a ton of stuff, right? Beans, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, etc. There's thousands of different recipes that you can eat in the capacity of what you can do to be healthy. I have, and I don't want to click on this because it's probably going to throw off the actual recording and the screen share, but these are actually links to recipes on my own website, and I'll put in the description of this video the recipe link website. But fast black bean chili, right? So there's there's probably 6 or 7 items on there, and the only item on there, and this is delicious and it's very quick to make. This actually I got from my daughter Christina. It has 0.5% fat in this can of black beans. I have it actually here with me on my screen, or on my desk. Uncle Joe's Pinto Bean Delight. So I actually got that from my brother-in-law, Joe Rios, Beverly's husband, and that has 0% fat. Actually, pinto beans have 0% fat in them. 0 fat, 0 trans fat, 0 saturated fat. So the entire recipe, which is amazing. And ask Grace Ann, we had this thing about every week for a year. I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. She finally had to say, hey, sweetie, is there something else we can have for dinner? We had it all the time, right? So it's probably no surprise that I lost a lot of weight when I was eating this quite a bit. Jackfruit barbecue. You know, there's another thing there, that there's no fat in the barbecue sauce because it's basically has some sugar in there, but the actual jackfruit is 0 fat. And then the veggie stew, all those are links to my items. There's 0 fat in that as well. So I said, well, you know, obviously there's tons of recipes. If you go to Forks Over Knives, I mean, there's tons of places you can get wonderful, healthy recipes that have low fat in them. I also said, well, what are some other things? And these are some experimentation. So these are pictures actually from my home. I bought the Little Potato Company potatoes last week. Again, potatoes are less than 1% fat. You can do this with potatoes or sweet potatoes. You cut them in half, you sprinkle a little garlic powder, black pepper, and onion powder on there. Again, no fat. You put it for 400 degrees for 30 minutes, and you've got basically potatoes you can eat. And I was dipping those in the ketchup, which there's no fat in the ketchup as well, right? So this is another one. I saw a Chef AJ video, and some of you may have seen this, where she really emphasizes how delicious the sweet potatoes, the purple Japanese sweet potatoes are, right? So these are locally here in town, the Asian market, which is on Wabash Avenue here in Springfield, they have these available. They're delivered on Thursdays. So Grace Ann and I went and got them on Friday, and we ran out. We went back on Sunday and got some more. So it's actually more expensive to get them here locally than to purchase from the link at the bottom of your screen, which is hawaiivegiefarm.com. It was actually more per pound to get them here locally. But I don't know if you can tell, but they're beautiful. Those ones in the middle there are getting ready to be put into the oven. And then when you take them out, you cut them open and they're basically purple. It is 250 degrees for 2.5 hours. So it's something if you're going to be hanging out in the house. Japanese purple potatoes are about 1% fat. These are so incredibly delicious. I'm not exaggerating. You literally feel like you're eating cake, right? What you can do, which Grace Ann and I started doing, is we're making 6, 7, 8 of these at a time, cooking them and eating them right afterwards. And then the rest we just put in a bag, and then we put in the microwave to warm it up for 1 minute. And now we've got cake to eat. Again, incredibly healthy, incredibly delicious, and nutritious, the whole bit at the same time. So that's just another idea of a way that you can fuel your body with incredibly healthy food. So why consider minimizing the fats? And again, most of you know this is where I went into this in the first place, some probably 5, 6 years ago, when I thought I was going to die of a heart attack. And I heard about a whole food plant-based diet. So this image, like I said before, is the lower the fat, you lose the weight, right? 5% fat. And that shows what those folks did on the rice diet. But what about the McDougall or Esselstyn diet? And those basically the very similar diet. They're emphasizing potatoes, emphasizing low fat, really minimizing things like avocados, olives, etc. Right? How can that specifically help? So I've got some testimonials I want to share with you. The first one is Kathy Mitchell. She did the McDougall diet, and I don't know the length of time. It was probably over a year, but over the course of that time, she lost 150 pounds, and you can see her before and after pictures are fairly dramatic here. Many of you know about Esther. She wrote a book, From Donuts to Potatoes. It's the McDougall diet. Her and her husband, you can see them on the left and then comparing on the right afterwards. She lost herself. I'm not sure how much he lost, but she lost herself 130 pounds. And she's a pretty prominent figure on, I think, YouTube, on Facebook. Very inspiring to many people on this call, but shows you that the obesity piece, it certainly works. Some of you know about high carb Hannah. She tried all different kinds of weights. All different kinds of diets. The second to last thing she did was she went on an all fruit diet and initially started losing weight and then started gaining weight back. And then she found out about the McDougall diet, where she lost 70 pounds, I think, over the course of a year. Very powerful. And then the last one I have is Ella B. Ella B lost 64 pounds. You can see the dates there, December 29, 2022 to just September the 5th, 2023. So that's obesity and what this can do for obesity and why it's important. Type 2 diabetes, this is actually hot off the press. This was posted a few hours ago. I went to the McDougall Facebook page where people are constantly posting their success stories. And this is a guy who has type 2 diabetes or was probably pre-diabetic, type 2 diabetes, and then his whole family members. So let me read this to you. It says, coming up on my 70th birthday, the day 23 years ago when I began the McDougall plan in earnest, a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet. After a visit to the doctor with sleep apnea, AFib, and a weight of 310 pounds on my 6'4" frame, I knew it was time for a change. At the end of the visit, the doctor was going to put me on 4 different medications, and 2 of those were to offset the ill effects of the other 2. I knew what I needed to do. I had John's book, the Maximum Weight Loss book, on my birthday 23 years ago. I started following the book like it was the food Bible. That was 125 pounds ago. All tests are normal now. I avoided diabetes, which is rampant in my family. Cholesterol numbers are normal. Sleep apnea is cured. AFib has gone as well. I'm still a 70-year-old body, but it's much better being on this path than the one that I was on 23 years ago. You can see the before and after on that one as well. Very, very powerful. And the last one I have, I don't know if this is going to work. So this is actually a video as well, but I'm not going to play it if it doesn't work. Let me just see here. Yeah, this one's not going to work either. So this is basically a video of actually John McDougall talking about Dean Ornish's reversing heart disease. And it says on the screen, in 24 days, 91% of the people had reduced the frequency of their angina or chest pain just after 24 days in the experimental group. So their episodes decreased significantly. So basically it shows you there, and this is Dr. Esselson's book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And that's the one that I've really kind of gotten into these last couple of weeks. I read this several years ago. Chapter 7, I thought, has an interesting title, which is, why didn't anyone tell me this, right? The power of reversing disease. I kind of felt that way as well 6, 7 years ago, where I was despondent and didn't know what I was going to do other than probably die of a heart attack. So I was really in a bad place. So I really kind of, that title, why didn't anyone tell this to me, really resonated for me. Many on the call, probably people that are watching online, know my personal story and my mission. And my mission is, number one, to get the information out, to get the information that you can reverse disease, to get the information that eating this way can significantly improve your life and your longevity, right? Giving you energy, losing weight, reversing diabetes. Many people, including myself, who was in healthcare for many, many years as a pharmacist, had no idea. Many physicians don't have any idea as well, right? He says in his in that video I showed you a little while ago, doctors still feel like diet has little to do with heart disease. You know, that definitely resonated with me as well, because they're not taught this, and there's no. I'm not talking bad about doctors, but many of them aren't taught anything about diet, or very little about diet when they go to med school and such. So here's the end of the presentation, which is really just kind of a call out of trying an experiment, if you're open to it. And the experiment goes like this. Between now and the end of the month, I want you to think about taking on a challenge, right? And the challenge would be, how much do you want to lean into this? It could be an example of, you know what, one day a week, I'm going to try to go whole food, plant-based, low fat. So again, those thousands of different recipes that you can be eating, etc. And 1, 2, 3 oats, which is just oatmeal and fruit, would be a recipe that you could have that would be low fat as well, right? Tons of recipes are out there. So the challenge is, are you interested in taking this on? And if so, 1 day a week, 3 days a week, 7 days a week, what makes for yourself, you know, for a week, for a couple of days, whatever. Again, just trying to move the needle and seeing how you feel. And I just put examples. It could be for 2 weeks, could be 4 weeks, could be 1 week. It's really whatever you're looking for. Outcomes could be weight loss, could be cholesterol lowering, really minimizing or eliminating the fat or the oil. So where do you start? Having that awareness, knowing where you are, right? So that's a big piece of this, is just kind of knowing where you're at. And if you're like, well, I'm going to be lowering the fat, but where do I stand today? And really being mindful of that. Also, being intentional and knowing where you want to go. You know, it's going to be Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm going to be whole food plant-based, and I'm going to have no fat at all, or I'm going to have very minimal fat, less than 10% or less. You could journal, you know, just building mindfulness in the process of being intentional of how things are going, how you're feeling, etc. Preparing and planning, education. So you could do some research, you can do some planning. You can say, here's the 3 or 4 recipes I want to go with. And then also never forget the self-compassion piece. This is definitely not about perfection. I'm a big proponent of what we can do to give ourselves some grace, but also I'm a proponent on personal growth and development. What can we do to push ourselves to be more healthy, right? So here's my commitment to you guys. If you're interested, you can use me as an accountability partner in this process of just doing this experiment of pursuing some foods or some days where you're going to be whole food plant-based with low fat, right? So for example, you could say, hey, Mike, this is what I do. My email is on the screen there, mike@wlscoaching.net. You can say, by the end of this month, that's when I'm going to offer this. You would send me an email by the end of February and say, here's what I'm going to do for the next 2 weeks, for the next week, 1 day a week, 6 days a week, whatever it is to you. This is what my commitment is. and then I can follow up with you. I can ask you what it is that you need. I actually can go back and forth with you on the email via coaching for accountability. So that's anybody that's watching this video will get that offer as well, just to help and support you. You can also use me for suggestions, recommendations, or what have you, planning. It doesn't really matter. What I'm hoping for is I'll get some people that are interested in just giving this a shot. And when I say that, I don't say 7 days a week. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to have whole, I'm never going to eat any fat, any avocados for the rest of my life. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, how can we just push the envelope to try to get better at what we're doing to fuel our bodies? So I'm going to open it up for you guys on the call. If this is something that you feel like you're interested in maybe learning more about this, or potentially pursuing a whole food, plant-based, low-fat diet to fuel your body 1 day at a time, 3 days a week, whatever that is, what do you guys think? And you can unmute yourselves if that's okay. What do you guys think are things that you would do or need to do to help yourselves to prepare? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, for me, I guess it would be cutting the nuts that I add to my oatmeal.
Okay.
I was actually surprised. Susan pointed out to me that oatmeal had a half cup of oatmeal had a half a gram of saturated fat. And I didn't believe that. And I went and looked it up, and it was like, well, where does that even come from?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I have always added lots of stuff to that. So maybe I need to just focus more on the fruits that I add to it and just eliminate the nuts.
Yeah, I love that. So eliminate the nuts, focus on the fruits.
Right.
Okay. What else comes to mind for you guys if you're thinking about in your lives, with the chaos we all have in our lives, if you're going to pursue this 1 day a week, 1 day over the course, 1 day of, in the month of March, I'm going to do it 1 day. What, if anything, do you need to do to help yourselves to prepare for this?
One thing is buy the rice and figure out a way to cook it, in the most reasonable, quickest way.
Okay. Tell me about that. So you're not sure how to cook the rice? Is that what you're saying? Or tell me about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, shall we eat brown rice? Shall we eat white rice?
Mm-hmm.
There's always the big debate. And, if I go to the Chinese restaurant, I can get the rice, but it's got salt on it. So that kind of defeats the purpose too.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
that's the quickest way, is just to buy the rice. But they've got salt on it, so I'll have to cook it. I guess minute rice would be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
That cooks in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah. Something that
I
I
could
did
get out my rice cooker.
Yeah. Something I did this week for the very first time is I made a big batch of brown rice, which I do all the time. But this time I actually put it in 3 Ziploc bags, like little sandwich bags, and threw it in the freezer, right? So you literally, and it'll keep for 1 or 2 months. And I researched it. It actually has the same nutritional value for at least 2 months. So that is something that would be extremely convenient, potentially, Susan, that you're talking about. Sometimes you're hungry and you want to eat. Oh my gosh, I've got this soup, but I really need some more calories. Throw in, the brown rice in the microwave for 60 seconds, or maybe it's going to be 2 minutes. I really don't know. I think I have frozen rice that I get from Trader Joe's, which is just frozen brown rice. In 3 minutes, it heats it up pretty nicely. So that's another option to potentially support yourself with regards to being ready to fuel your body with healthy, low-fat foods. Helen, what you got?
Yeah, so for me, I'm all about convenience and planning. So as much as I can plan my week ahead of time and like use my calendar specifically. Like I even put like when I need to go grocery shopping in my calendar because it's like scheduled down to the hour.
Yeah.
And so that really helps me. And then the other thing that I do is supplement with, like I was saying, convenience. Like I discovered that I'm not good at making grains. It
Okay.
takes me a long time. I either undercook it or overcook it, and I'm like impatient with making any types of grains, so rice, couscous,
Yeah.
um, farro, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've actually found a more convenient way through Amazon to buy those things like kind of already pre-made. Like I really love sticky rice. And
Mhm.
so I was unable to make sticky rice myself, so I got these like pre-packaged sticky rice packages from Amazon that you can just stick in the microwave for 90 seconds. And then you have like perfectly done sticky rice, and then all I need to do is add the additional vegetables or protein or whatever I need on top of that.
That's fantastic. What a great idea. Because convenience is, we're so busy, right? And that's a great way. If after this call, Helen, if you could send me the link to that Amazon sticky rice, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Mary Casino because she had similar
Yeah.
like sticky rice containers that she
Mhm.
used in college when we were roommates. And so I really that's like my inspiration.
That's awesome. So
Yep.
tell me about your what you see as your process for your planning as it relates to your calendar and grocery shopping. Maybe so let's just say, I don't know, you give me a number, 1 day a week. Would you be interested in possibly doing this experiment? 2 days, you give me a number, and then based on that number, tell me what your planning looks like as it relates to whether that's the meals you're going to cook or what have you. Tell me a little bit about that.
And just a clarification, when you say experiment, you mean the like the rice heavy
Yeah, I mean
um
10% fat, exactly. Just
10% fat. Okay.
100% whole food, plant-based, 10% fat. So minimizing or eliminating some of those things on that screen, like avocados, nuts, etc.
Yeah. I think I could be pushed to do it 3 weekdays. On the
Hmm.
weekends, I really harp to eat out
Yeah,
as like a reward for getting through the week. But
yeah,
I think on the weekdays, it's very manageable. And what I do is I literally plan around my meetings when I can run to the grocery store. And I have a preset shopping list that I have at the grocery store. So I don't buy anything additional because I've prepped like Sunday night. And what
yeah,
I do is I look at like cookbooks that I have while
yeah,
I'm like watching football or watching 60 Minutes or whatever.
yeah.
And I take like kind of like 30 to 40 minutes to plan exactly what ingredients I need because I want to make specific recipes. And then therefore, when I do schedule my grocery time, which takes like 20 minutes, like
Mhm.
I'm like a very efficient grocery shopper,
Right.
then I'm kind of like in and out based
Mhm.
on the preset list.
I love that. Yeah, so really very organized with the things you want to make, what you're going to need based on that, setting it up. And this usually once a week is when you're kind of sitting down and really kind of organizing it. And then are you going to shop on that Sunday or sometime during the week around your meetings, you said?
Yeah, I usually shop Mondays after work, because I go to Trader Joe's and the Trader Joe's is so busy on the weekends.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, they have a lot of helpful stuff too, as far as convenience too. So very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's great. And if you're open, Helen, just think about it. Again, we're just trying to experiment here. We're not looking for a commitment for the rest of your life. But if the number is 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, whatever that is, I would love to, in the capacity of helping and supporting you, to just pursue this and trying it. Because what I want to know, and I'm doing this experiment currently myself, I want to know what, if anything, am I getting out of this differently, right? Am I losing weight? I think it's too early to tell. I've only been doing this for about a week now. I have been consuming a massive amount of sweet potatoes and regular potatoes, and I love them. Some people maybe don't, but I absolutely love them. They're delicious. And then a lot of what I'm making is on the side of, the less fat piece, so just, I'm not having soy at this point in time. I'm not having my usual avocado, huge, large avocado once a day, which I've been missing, but I'm just trying this experiment and we'll see. And it's probably 5 or 6 days a week because I am eating out some as well. And I definitely would be very happy to report back to you guys as here's some things that I noticed changed or what have you. So, but yeah, you just let me know, Helen, or anybody else on the call that's interested in just committing to saying, hey, let's just do a little bit of a stretch here and let's do an experiment. And what's that maybe number of days a week that you want to try, maybe for the month of March or what have you. So Anybody else as it relates to this idea of this experiment, or anything that maybe needs to be done to help prepare for it, or what have you?
Mike, I just wanted to jump in. Yeah, when you showed your list of what comes off, oh boy, that was hard because I'm, making these steps towards whole food plant-based, and the part that I loved was my avocados and my the nuts and the soy. I have actually liked tofu, and but was a little frustrated with not really losing weight. I'm kind of maintaining, but I'm also turning a big ship around here.
Sure.
I was a little daunted when I saw your list, but I think it would be great to try this experiment. I think it's important to have, as we've talked about sometimes, the food ready to go, the big pot of either the bean chili or the Uncle Joe's, or just something that you can go to. I will miss the avocados and the yummy, I usually have it for a snack. I put nuts on a lot of things, and have been baking my own tofu and things like that. But I think this would be interesting. It'll be next level.
Yeah, I think that describes it perfectly. And I think your frustration and your angst seeing that slide I feel the same way, because I've shared with all of you every day. Every day. And I don't have a small avocado. I have a huge avocado. And I miss it. Again, I'm just doing an experiment here. I miss it, but
you don't need to lose an ounce.
What's that?
You don't need to lose an ounce.
No.
Yeah, but I'm not necessarily just doing it for that reason. I'm also doing it for how I feel. How's my GI system, right? Because sometimes that gets jacked up. I went through a bad cold. So maybe I will lose weight. I don't know. I pretty much have been the same weight for a long time, anywhere from 148 to 152. I weighed about 150 in high school. So I'm happy with my weight. I'm not necessarily doing it to lose weight. I actually may gain weight because I've been lifting a little bit more as well. But overall, I get it. But I would just say, Lisa, it's just an experiment, and it doesn't have to be 7 days a week. It can be if you want to push yourself that way, but it could literally be 3 days a week, because, usually you're having an avocado every day, and you say, you know what, I'm going to have an avocado 3 days this week instead of 7, or what have you. So every little bit, I think, counts just to try this experiment to see if you get some traction.
Well, I always justified it. And I even said it today. Someone said, oh, you're eating avocado. It's got a lot of fat in it. But it's got plant fat. It's the plant fat argument. I've been making that for years. And that surprisingly a large amount of fiber. I've been kind of tracking fiber as well, where I'm getting that. So, but no, this I'm in. I'm all in. Let's try it.
Okay, so thank you so much. And just to sum this up again, as a reminder, I'm just going to have my email on here as the video closes out. Mike@WLScoaching.net. If anybody on the call live or anybody seeing this video sends me an email, all I'm really looking for is what's your commitment. And if you're not committed, please don't send an email. It's okay. There's no obligation here. This is literally an experiment over the course of the month of March, or even starting effective immediately if you want to. How many days a week would you like to give this a shot? And what does that look like? And honestly, Lisa, I think avocados are incredibly healthy. I think nuts are very nutritious and very healthy as well. So I'm not besmirching those at all. However, this is a little bit different, right? This is a little bit, as it relates to, for me personally, heart disease. Let's just give this a shot and see what happens, So I want to always see what I can do to help the people I care about, which is basically everybody on this call, or potentially anybody listening, to say, what can we do to just push a little bit more? Again, remember that slide right here, the very last thing on this slide, which is compassion. This is not about perfection. There's a balance here. And what can we do to just push the envelope here, giving ourselves grace, but also potentially getting some pretty great results in the process as well. So any other final comments from anybody?
The goal is 10% fat.
Yeah, that's if you're gonna go 100% into whole food, plant-based, low fat, you're typically going to get about 10% fat. So, for example, to Susan and Bev's point, oatmeal is still low in fat, and in the scheme of things, you're going to be about 10% fat because plants do have fat in it. But yeah, that's pretty much the goal, is about 10% fat. You're looking at about 10 or 15% protein, probably, depending on how many beans you're eating and what kind. And the rest of it is carbohydrates, which again, the white rice diet was 95-5. This is more like is an 80-10-10, or 80-10, 75-10-15, something along those lines with regards to carbohydrates and stuff. So okay. Any other final comments? Okay, please know that if I do not hear from you, it is 100% okay. I mean that sincerely. So I just want to throw this out there and see what we can do together. And if that's not something you're interested in, I hope I didn't waste your time. But at least I know what everybody's mascot is. And that's what's important. So, all right, you guys, I'm going to close it out. So great to see everybody. You guys take care, okay? God bless.
Thank you,
Thank
Mike.
you. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.